Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts. In today's episode, we are talking about the harm of vegetable oils on the body. You know, I can tell you, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to a podcast that was talking about this 15 years ago. But now that I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old boy, and I'm monitoring their blood work every 6 months, looking at their full panels of understanding, what their true health is in these two boys to try to give them best roadmap to success from an athletic standpoint, and also understanding nutrition, and also just understanding how to take care of their body. Something I've told my boys, no one's going to care about your body more than you. So we can't just go to a doctor and let them to tell us what we need to do. They have to take control of their health. And so today's topic, though, after I experienced a lot of things in life, and now I'm 48 myself, my full attention is how can we live in my family, the Fouts family, the most healthiest life that we can live. Not only for longevity, but more importantly, for the quality of life of every day. How can we feel the best? How can we, perform the best, whatever it is that we want to do? So today got 6 points that talk about the harm of vegetable oils on the body, of what it really does, the overconsumption of vegetable oils. We're going to be talking about how it lowers to testosterone and hormonal imbalance. We're going to be talking about increased risk of heart disease, increased inflammation and chronic disease, weight gain and obesity, brain fog and mental decline, and then gut health destruction and leaky gut syndrome.
Let's go!
It's kind of crazy because when you look back 100 years ago, we didn't have a lot of these issues, but we used natural fats for cooking. And I will never forget, I was probably around 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that, when my mom first introduced Crisco into our home. I didn't know what Crisco was. I assumed it was fat. At the time, I really didn't question. I didn't know, because my mom had always previously used the bacon grease to cook with, that she just got through making bacon, any kind of fat. A friend of ours would bear hunt, leave us bear fat, and so I didn't know what Crisco was. And so those of you that don't know, Crisco was developed by Procter and Gamble. And basically they found a way to use hydrogenation to create a solid, kind of looks like fat. So they took this hydrogenation process with cottonseed oil and made it look like, fat. And then they marketed it to the marketplace of this is the healthy way of cooking. And basically it was cottonseed oil. They also used some other vegetables in the beginning, but it ended up being cottonseed oil. And then they put a heavy marketing spin on trying to get the moms to buy this Crisco, from giving them free cookbooks, all these different things. So that's when it started, for me remembering, in the early 80s, and now it just become part of our life. I mean, we didn't think anything of it. And now that I'm looking at every bit of harm that these vegetable oils do to our body, I can tell you that it's something you need to pay attention to. It's something that is definitely destroying. Now, again, I'm 48 and I want to live a healthy life, but the reason I have so much attention on this is because of my two boys, 17 and 15. So if you have young kids, don't do this just for you, but pay attention to their diet and the seed oils that's going into their body, mainly for giving them a good head start from a health standpoint. So let's talk about number one, lower testosterone and hormonal imbalance. There was a 2019 study, and I'm going to share with you, quite a few research data, but I'm not going to go through all of the research data. I'm just going to reference where we have got this information from. For if you want to go read the studies more, and you're welcome to do that, we'll put these in the notes on the podcast. So I'm not going to go through all the details. I'm going to just give you the cliff notes of these studies. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that men who consume higher amounts of polyunsaturated fats, which is also known as PUFAs. That's the way I'll be pronouncing this the rest of the way, is just the PUFAs, but it's polyunsaturated fats from vegetable oils had significantly lowered testosterone levels compared to those who consume more saturated fats. So it's not just a little bit, it's significantly lowered. PUFAs increase oxidative stress in the Leydig cells, which are responsible for testosterone production. So the PUFAs, guys, the polyunsaturated fats, it's increased the oxidative stress, which basically keeps that testosterone from being produced. In contrast, diets high in saturated fat, such as those containing beef tallow, are linked to higher testosterone levels and improved sperm quality. Now, which one, if I stopped the podcast today and if you went and read this one study, which one are you going to choose? A beef tallow or a vegetable oil? And one of the things that a lot of people think too, again, we're only talking about cooking oils, right, Jeremy? No. We're talking about these seed oils that are in everything. One of Pearson's friends, my 17-year-old, he recommended one of these yogurts that he loves. And so we was purchasing them, and then I grabbed the labels, and the first thing in it is sunflower oil. And I said, Pearson, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that. So we bought the Kirkland's Greek yogurt. We blended up our own strawberries, and we made the same yogurt without the sunflower oil. Paying attention, I shared a story yesterday with Beckett, brought home some veggie chips is what they was labeled as, from a friend's house, but every bit of it was just seed oils. So pay attention to the seed oils and the harm that it's doing in your body. Number two, it's increased risk for heart disease. And this is something that is crazy for people to understand, because for decades, people were told that replacing saturated fats with vegetable oils would reduce heart disease. But modern studies show the opposite. There's a study done by Minnesota Coronary Experiment that was a large-scale study involving over 9,000 people, and it found that saturated fats with vegetable oils lowered cholesterol. Listen to this. Lowered cholesterol, but increased mortality risk. So, I could go on and on about this, because a lot of people think, well, high cholesterol is bad. I could scroll down way down here to my call notes, and I'm not going to get into this subject now. I've got actually a medical doctor that we're going to be talking about this next week, but talking about how important HDL is, your cholesterol, and how protective it is to the heart. And it's good to have higher levels HDL, which is associated to a lower risk of heart disease. So there's so much information here that you really need to pay attention to, because this study here shows that 9,000 people, they might have had a little bit lower cholesterol, but they have more of a mortality risk. Here's another one. The Sydney Diet Heart Study showed that men who replaced saturated fat with omega-6 rich vegetable oils had a 62% higher risk of death from heart disease. I mean, and here's why. It's because oxidized LDL cholesterol from these oils contributes to arterial plaque buildup, which increases basically stroke and heart attack risk. So guys, understand what we are doing here. We went through a whole phase of kind of being asleep, of not paying attention to what's happening in our food industry. And what's happening is we're having real good labels from a marketing standpoint, calling them vegetable chips and calling it about protein yogurt. But we've got to read the fine print and understand what you're doing to your body by continuously consuming these seed oils. Number three, increased inflammation and chronic disease. See, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in the modern diet right now is about 20 to 1. Our ancestors consumed it at about a 1 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3, or maybe a 2 to 1. But I mean, that's a dramatic difference. And a 2018 study in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that a high omega-6 intake increases chronic inflammation, contributing to obesity, because the high omega-6 intake is linked to higher body fat storage, Alzheimer's disease, because basically it oxidizes the PUFAs. The oxidized PUFAs damage the brain cells, and then autoimmune disorders. Vegetable oils are linked to increased incidence of rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease. I'm telling you guys, it's not anything to laugh about. It's not anything to ignore, is the right words I was looking for, of letting you know the damage, the inflammation. You know, I've had one doctor previously on the podcast talk about the biggest concern for him is the inflammation in people's bodies. And over, when I talk to him, because he's a personal friend, he's like, we got to get rid of the inflammation. And I feel like the majority of the inflammation we are bringing in on ourselves because of these seed oils. Number 4, the weight gain and obesity epidemic. Vegetable oils are directly linked to increased fat storage and obesity. I mean, you find me 10 people, and there's so many different studies. I'm about to read another one right below this that I was reading this morning that are consuming high vegetable oils, and I guarantee you they're going to be more obese. A 2020 study, which is in the Journal of Obesity Research, found that mice fed a high PUFA diet gained 30% more fat than those fed a diet rich of saturated fats, even with the same calorie intake. So the same calorie intake, one is having the PUFAs, which is the polyunsaturated fats, one's having just saturated fats, and they had 30% more weight gain. And not to mention all the other things that I'm talking about. Lower testosterone, increased inflammation and chronic disease, increased risk of heart disease. So it's really important for you to understand that. And I guarantee you, majority of the obesity is brought on not only from sugar, we could talk about that in a whole different podcast, but from these seed oils. Number 5 is brain fog and mental decline. Your brain is 60% fat, okay? And it needs stable. Healthy fats, like those found in beef tallow, is what your brain needs. And it's 60% fat, your brain. A 2015 study in the Journal of Neurobiology of Aging found that high PUFA consumption is associated with increased risk of dementia and cognitive decline. No questions asked. That's what you're doing to your body, is you're basically becoming a suspect to dementia and cognitive decline. Oxidized vegetable oils cause neural inflammation, impairing focus, memory, and cognitive function. I mean, it's pretty black and white. You want to have a healthy brain, you need to have saturated fats like the beef tallow and less PUFAs. It's just pretty simple. Number 6 is gut health destruction and leaky gut syndrome. A 2021 study in Nutrients found that vegetable oils damage the gut lining, leading to leaky gut syndrome, which allows toxins and bacteria to enter the bloodstream. And this has been linked also to autoimmune conditions, which is food sensitivities and chronic inflammation. In contrast, though, beef tallow contains conjugated linoleic acid, which is called CLA, which supports gut health and reduces inflammation. So if you're having to choose between what you cook with, if you're having to choose to what you want in your yogurts or your chips, whatever it is that you're consuming, is it going to be beef tallow? Is it going to be some good saturated fat? Or are we going to choose vegetable oils? I know what I'm choosing. Now, I choose beef tallow, and I'll kind of end up here sharing with you why. Number 1, it helps with testosterone boosting, provides the cholesterol and saturated fat needed for hormone production. Beef tallow also supports a healthy heart. Unlike oxidized seed oils, tallow does not contribute to arterial plaque buildup. Number 3, it supports fat burning and metabolism. Unlike PUFAs, tallow is efficiently used for energy rather than stored as fat. Number 4, brain and cognitive health. It's rich in fat and soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and potassium for brain function. And then number 5, it's stable for cooking. Unlike vegetable oils, tallow does not oxidize under heat, preventing harmful chemicals like the vegetable oils do. So it's pretty simple, guys. I use beef tallow for cooking with everything, and a lot of times you can buy it now at Costco and different places like that. I actually cook a lot of beef. I think all of you know that. And I actually buy beef, trim it up, the fat, and my brisket, and then I save it, and then I run it through a grinder, and then I add it in a pan with some water, and I boil it until basically the water disappears, and then I drain the beef tallow off into I've got like a cheesecloth, and then I put it in jars. But that's all I use is saturated fats, and I'm telling you, the war against saturated fat has led people to unknowingly poison themselves with vegetable oils, which contribute to all these things I'm talking about: low testosterone, obesity, inflammation, and chronic disease. We got to ditch the seed oils and switch to a beef tallow, a healthy fat, and people can restore their hormones, optimize their health, and reclaim their vitality. I'm telling you, this is kind of a little bit of a tongue twister for me of doing this podcast, because there's definitely a lot that I wanted to give you in a short time frame. But I'm going to be talking, next week with the medical doctor, and we're going to be mentioning these things. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background of understanding of the damage that we are doing to our body by consuming large amounts of seed oils in our diet. So share this podcast with your friends and family. Continue to follow us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is growing significantly. The podcast, thank you for your support. It's kind of been exciting seeing the growth this last 30 days of the Hard Truth podcast. I'm going to continue to bring my best to educate you, to let you know what you need to do in order to be the best version of yourself. Thank you, guys. Good day. Let's go.